Hey there, how are we all? I've just seen Season 8, Episode 4, The Last of the Starks. Oh boy. I'm still in shock from last week. It's still not quite left me. I think I'm going to have PTSD about the Night King for the rest of my existence. But it's over now. We have to deal with the real problem. Which is Cersei. So I have a few more problems with the series which have just become prevalent now. Okay, let's get into this shit. We open. Jon Snow gives the most boring speech I've ever heard. I think it's up there with Snow White and the Huntsman. In fairness, I'd like to point out that all of the cast of Game of Thrones are fantastic. The acting is fucking superb, so they could be saying absolute shit, which they are at this point, and I'd say, well, you say it with so much conviction, I believe you. So scene 2, they have a party, and they're like, hooray! We, the main cast, have survived the White Walkers. That was surprisingly easy, don't you think? No one actually says that, because that dialogue would be too good and too self-aware for these chuckle fucks writing it now. No, they just say, haha, woo, we did it. There's some nice banter, some genuinely good stuff, and for all of 2 seconds before they get into the "Are you a virgin, Brienne?" And then the problems just became so apparent again. They reared their ugly head. Ooh, and it was ugly. I shielded my eyes, but I couldn't look away at the misery that was unfolding on screen. Jaime and Brienne of Tarth. Fuck. Jaime and her have been traveling together. They've seen each other naked. They've just existed together. That's been it, right? When they were in the hot tub together, Jaime wasn't saying, hubba hubba. You know, I am the sexiest man in Westeros. Oh, well, I heard you only fuck your sister. You look a bit like her. And let's get on with it then. There was none of that shit, okay? They just talked like friends. The relationship was entirely platonic. And then the writing of Game of Thrones turns into fan fiction. And they make Jaime and Brienne have sex. It's like, oh no. Oh no. And you know, want to know what's worse than that? There was someone else trying to have sex with Brienne of Tarth. It probably would have been better, but we won't contest that point. And the thing is, I saw it, and I thought, oh, this is what Game of Thrones has become. A love triangle. It's turned into schlocky schmaltz. It's genuine soap opera levels of schlock. They set up a love triangle in Game of Thrones, a show that was supposed to buck tropes. A show that was supposed to be above just the normal shit we see on TV. And they make it into a love triangle. And they turn Brienne into a little bitch. Why did you do that? Groveling at Sir Jaime's cock, like, no, don't leave me, Jaime. And Jaime's like, oh, I love Cersei. The only consistent thing a character has done since season 5. It's the only bit of kudos they're getting. And Jaime leaves Brienne. She was such a strong character until they just made her into an object of a love triangle. A love triangle that did not make sense. And then, like, immediately after that, whoever it was, Storm Watcher, fuck him, whatever his name is, the one who had sex with Arya, yeah, that guy, he runs up to Arya, he goes up to her and he says, wow, I want you to marry me. And she says, no. And then Daenerys goes to Jon and professes her love for him. Am I watching an episode of Desperate Housewives? Or is this fucking Game of Thrones? I don't know the difference. This is the classic soap opera thing, right? I want to get with you. I shouldn't get with you. And it's all about the relationship between, man or woman, man and man, woman and woman. And the desire of the audience to see two characters get together. And yes, if this was any other TV show, fuck it. This is fucking Game of Thrones, though. This isn't saccharine shit. Let me remind you of what George said about Game of Thrones, where he wanted to buck the trends of normal fantasy genre. And here we are. I've now seen something. Something that I can't unsee ever again. It's the way that scenes play out in Game of Thrones, particularly in the later seasons. This wasn't the case back in the day. I don't think. I've been re-watching some of the episodes and it's not been the case. What happens in the latest episodes is, in any given scene, there is character A and there is character B. And they're talking to each other. It can vary on what they're doing while they're talking. Sometimes they're drinking wine. Sometimes the setting's different, like they're at a bar and there's extras in the background. Or they're walking. They stop. Character A looks at character B and asks a question. And character B indirectly answers it. And then walks off. And that's it. That's Game of Thrones. That's every fucking scene in this episode. Is character talks, and then one character walks away, and that's the scene ended. So why does this upset me? Like, it's such a small thing. It's that this is the typical way that a soap opera operates. Is shot, reverse shot of two people talking, and one of the characters exits the shot by walking away, and that's the scene. That is soap opera in its finest form. And I got to thinking about it and went, oh shit. That is what Game of Thrones is now. I mean, there's some action, sometimes there's some frontal nudity, sometimes there's White Walkers. Not really though. They were never a threat. Sometimes there's dragons. But most of the time it's just a glorified soap opera. And this was not the case. I swear to you, this was not the case. Go back and watch season 1 for me. See the difference. See what's happened. Let's run through a couple of things that have changed. So first of all, not only is it bad enough that it's a soap opera now, they've also turned the villains into just the most generic fantasy home brand shit imaginable. Look no further than the Night King, right? He was a villain that existed in Game of Thrones. Did he have any interesting motives? Any kind of personality? Anything? He was just a dude who wanted to do evil things because he was evil. That's it. Now let's look at some of the villains we've had in the past. Theon Greyjoy, he didn't start off as a villain. Through being misguided, he ended up doing villainous things and burning 2 goddamn children. An anti-hero, at best. He certainly was no hero. He was reprehensible, but he had his reasons for it, right? Or, let's look at... oh god. Let's look at Joffrey. One of the first instances he was introduced as a proper villain was when he went down to the river where Arya and the butcher's boy were fighting with just sticks. And he was with Sansa. Sansa was tailing him. And Joffrey wanted to show off. It was quite apparent he was just the biggest douche. But it was believable. He's a fucking kid. Yes, a misguided kid. And he's a douchebag kid. And I'd absolutely shoot him in the head, even as a kid. But, you know, he had his motives. He had his reasons for what he did. Were they pure evil? No, not exactly. They weren't good, but they weren't evil for the sake of evil. He was trying to impress Sansa. So when the Butcher Boy and Arya start to have their stick fight, Joffrey comes in and he says, "Oh, do you want to fight with a real sword?" Arya attacks Joffrey for trying to slice up the Butcher Boy. Joffrey tries to attack Arya, and then Arya's direwolf comes in and bites his arm. So Joffrey goes crying to Mother and says, "We should have the direwolf killed." Arya smartly sends a direwolf away. Joffrey still wants one of the direwolves killed because he's a cunt. And why is he a cunt? Why does he expect this? Because he just gets whatever he wants. All the elements are there for why he is this complete piece of shit. They're all there. Terrible parenting. Terrible parenting. And terrible people as his parents. In a marriage that was obviously not meant to be. Right? That's why Joffrey became Joffrey. He had motivations, he had reasons, he had setup, he had payoff. He was a nuanced and complex villain. And we have the Night King. The Night King comes in. And he wants to kill everything. And we learn nothing about him. We don't know how the Night King came to be. Why the Night King's doing what he's doing. He's just the man who smirks at dragons like, "I'm evil." Thanks, Night King. The villains are villains of the week. They're not deep, they're not nuanced, they're not complex. The only villains that are worth a damn are ones that were already built upon in the first seasons, which is to say Cersei. Whenever the writers have had their hand in a villain, by themselves, the villain has been absolute shit. When they took Ramsay Bolton, they just fucking ruined him, man. Ramsay was not evil for the sake of being evil. He was a bastard child who hated being a bastard child and wanted the approval of his fucked up dad. He had motivations, he had a character. He did things for a reason, not because he was pure evil. And then they turned him into just pure evil. Because they don't know how to write nuance and complexity. They don't know how to write, generally. Shall we look at what they did to Tyrion again? Because I've been watching the first series, and I cannot believe what I'm seeing. It's... Tyrion's now cross-eyed going, "What? That man isn't Tyrion? It's some autist. What happened to my man?" In one of the first episodes, Tyrion meets Jon Snow, just before Jon Snow's decided to go to the Wall. And Tyrion has a fascination for Jon Snow. Most of the time, Tyrion's dealing with people who hate him, like his bitch family. But instead, Tyrion finds someone who's just like him, who's an outcast because his mother, let's be fair, when Sean came in with that baby and said, "Oh, it's not yours," she was the one who suggested that they drop the bastard child down a well. She doesn't like him. And Tyrion sees that, and they become mutual acquaintances. So much so that Tyrion later saves Jon at the Night's Watch, because Jon shows up a couple of people in some practice with swords, and they try and come back to Shawshank Redemption his ass, literally. And he comes in, right, and he says to them all, "You've got a very familiar face. All of you. They would be good on pikes." Paraphrasing, of course. So let's examine that piece of dialogue. So that piece of dialogue there, where it says, "You have a very distinct face, it would be good on pike," that makes complete sense. It's a threat to stop them from taking care of Jon in the anus. And later, it plays another role, because he's not only just saying that they have distinct faces because they'd be good on pikes, he also mentioned that so that it could establish another thing. It doesn't just set up one thing, it sets up another. It sets up that Tyrion has talked to the commanding officer of the Night's Watch about these characters, and that they have very distinct personalities. So he can then talk about who these people are as characters, right? It serves a double purpose, saying that their faces are distinct. And that's good writing. So what do we have with Tyrion in Season 8? Cock jokes. I can count the amount of witty dialogue that Tyrion has had on my hand. Oh, looks like none of my fingers are raised. That's odd. Yeah, he said nothing witty this entire fucking time. No cock jokes are not witty. They're witty for maybe 16-year-olds. Not even 16-year-olds, maybe 14-year-olds. Laughing at this expense of a eunuch and how he doesn't have balls is not witty dialogue. And it serves no purpose but superficially making the audience laugh. It's a claptrap. And a claptrap, what a claptrap is it's just baiting a laugh. That's its definition. That's all of Tyrion's dialogue, is baiting a laugh. But when Tyrion said a funny line in the original series, it was not funny for the sake of being funny. It had a purpose. When he's captured and forced to talk about his misdemeanors with his sister and his family and how they hate him, and how he talks about how he beat the one-eyed snake, the purpose wasn't to be funny. That was a side effect. It was fucking hilarious. But it explained dialogue at the same time, and it gave backstory. It did. When George wrote it, dialogue would serve multiple purposes. Now dialogue serves one purpose, to make you feel one certain emotion, and that's it. It's never more than that. It's not complex, it's not nuanced, it is basic bitch shit. What else do we need to talk about? The dialogue is basic at best and serves only one function. The scenes, every single scene in the latest season has been established like a soap opera. It follows that exact same formula where character A talks to character B, and then character A leaves, and then the scene ends. Worse than just having the formula of a soap opera, it is a fucking soap opera, because they have love triangles, and it's all about the romance between different characters. And, ooh, will Jon get together with the Night King? The villains have been reduced to the most basic, primitive simpletons on the planet. The show follows tropes, rather than, trying to do away with tropes. It follows them. Like having love triangles, like having basic fantasy instead of, like following these predictable plot lines that it's so much like fan fiction, it hurts. It hurts. So basically, what I'm saying is that there is no complexity to this show anymore. It isn't what it was. It has gone from something that was complex and deep to simple, mainstream grabbing schlock. And that's so disappointing. That's my problem, really. I mean, we could talk about like the rest of the problems with the episode. Missandei ending up getting captured by the enemy, despite the fact that none of the other main characters or cast were captured, just so that they could have their climactic moment. Again, they did away with logic, just because fuck it. Who cares about logic, really? So that they could have their moment. And that's terrible writing, but one of the dragons getting fucking killed because Dany, who's 1,000 feet in the fucking air, can't see ships. Someone pointed out in the comments, oh, maybe Dany was texting. Hilarious, by the way. I wonder what she was texting while she was up there. Just up with my dragons over King's Landing. Oh, dragon. Here with Euron, feeling sad. Maybe that's what she was texting. The pacing was worse than a porno. At this point, let's just call it now. Game of Thrones was fantastic, and it is fantastic. all 4 seasons of it. And we leave it at that. It's not the same show it was. That's quite apparent. The directors have taken it in an entirely different direction. I hate that direction, by the way. I despise it, if that's not clearly apparent from how I'm talking right now. But it's a different direction. And we can still appreciate George. We can still appreciate his books. And just leave it at that. I don't know if I'm going to do any more of these. I think I've said what I needed to, really. And finish it in a satisfying way, unlike Game of Thrones. So, unless something radical happens, I probably won't make any more videos on it. I might come back for the last episode just to recap everything. But I will be doing more content like this. Do not worry, do not fuss. I'm going to be doing one on One Punch Man. I'm going to be doing one on Attack on Titan. Look forward to them. Love you all. Take care.